Tonight, I'd like to introduce you to a very important person. It is. There's a seat. Yeah. Mike, can I get you? I will find it.
Hi everyone, the event is now being broadcasted live. We will be starting the program in about 15 minutes, so please stay tuned.
Always turn it off when you.
Hi, everybody. This is Vanessa. Just to let you know, we're going to start our presentation in just 5 minutes. Thanks. Check, check, double check.
Yeah.
Check, check, double check. Thanks. Good afternoon, everybody. Or good morning, depending wherever you are today. I'm Vanessa. I'm from Envision. And thank you for joining us today, whether you're here in person in the San Francisco Lighthouse for the Blind or online on multiple networks, I guess. So to get things started, I just wanted to explain that the first part of this afternoon are a series of presentations where we have some great speakers, some fantastic tech partners and innovators, and a panel discussion that I hope will, stretch our minds and get us thinking about the important topic of workplace accessibility and happiness. First of all, a little bit of housekeeping, if I may. If you need assistance of any kind, please raise your hand. There's some wonderful people from the Lighthouse and Envision here to help at any time. Today's event is being recorded on Zoom and is now live streamed on YouTube. So you are now all officially YouTubers. We will also be taking questions and answers at the end of the session. And again, for those of you here with us, we'll be walking around with another microphone and taking questions. But those joining us online, you won't be left out. You'll be invited to offer your questions as well. And we'll do the best as we can, Kartik, to make sure we can answer those for you as well. And you can answer that, put your questions forward on Zoom in the Q&A window, or you can use the raise hand function. And the keyboard shortcuts for those are on Mac, it's Option plus Y, and on PC Windows, it's Alt plus Y. And that's to raise your hand on Zoom. And on YouTube, just use the chat function. So we'll be taking those. So as I said, the program today, we have some wonderful speakers, and who better to kick things off than Sharon, CEO from the Lighthouse for the Blind here in San Francisco. And I don't think Sharon needs any introduction of herself, but thank you, Sharon, for everything. And please come and kick things off. Thank you. The microphone is on.
Do what?
The microphone is on.
The microphone is on. You always have to be careful about open mics. You know, when you get up here, you don't want to say anything that you're not supposed to. So everybody, welcome to my house, the Lighthouse. And so I'm going to get us kicked off here with, 120 years ago, the Lighthouse was founded, different iterations of it than what we are now, to fill a need. And that need was a lady who identified her brother, who was blind, didn't have access to information, and there wasn't anybody to help. So she started the Reading Room for the Blind at the San Francisco Public Library, of whom we have one of our partners from the San Francisco Public Library here, Tommy. How are you? Thanks for joining us today. And that need continues to be fulfilled. And the need is no less today than it was 120 years ago. We have just advanced in technology, but it's being able to introduce people to those technologies and have wonderful partners like Envision and everybody else that we have in the room here. So for me, 23 years ago, losing my vision, it changed my life. I had no idea. I had no benchmarks, number one. I didn't know a Mike May at that time to say that, there's other possibilities. I didn't know the people who work on the Lighthouse staff and all that, but I had to be taught. I had to have access to that information. And that's what everything's about today, for whether you're a person with a visual impairment, whether you're a family member of somebody with a visual impairment, because we have one of our little learner dads here. And thank you for joining us today, because there's only a world of possibilities for our little learners, right? And especially when you're driving that. So we want to make sure that you have access to that. We still know that there's a 70% unemployment rate among working age blind adults. Really, there's no reason for that. Yeah, boo, boo. Thanks, Troy, for starting the booing section over here. I like that. You're my tribe, man. I got you. And so we want to be able to change that. But in order to do that, we need to get the information to the employers, and we need to show them what is disruptive, what's inclusive, what's innovative. And I tell you, the day that I ran into Envision at CSUN last year, and the Vanessa and the Kurtaks, and Bob over there, and Bob who's in Texas, it kind of changed my life. I'm an early adopter of technology. I was a user of another platform at that time. And I remember when I put those glasses on and I started to walk around the hotel, and it read everything that I wasn't seeing. It was a real eye opener, pun intended. So I don't want to belabor this. I'm so appreciative of you allowing the Lighthouse to host this with you, in partnership with you. And thank you, everybody who came today. The people who aren't here, they're just missing out on the fun, I tell you. But I have the distinct pleasure of introducing our keynote speaker. Somebody's staticky over here. And it is a man, a man of all men, who I have followed for the 23 years in my career as innovative, ingenious, creative in solutions, not just for himself, but for everybody else, and has opened doors and provided information for so many people. So I've had the honor of following along in the shadows of this giant. And his name's Mike May. And so it's my pleasure to introduce Mike and to be able to enlighten all of us. So Mike, you want to join us up here? And I'm going to step away. And you have a caller mic, right?
I do.
So, oh, he does. Thank you, Vanessa.
Metal the microphone's on a tie, so I don't have a metal tie. I think bad picture here. I'll try not to move too much. 1 second. Okay. We're good for the moment. All right. Well, thanks, Sharon, for that introduction. And the real treat about coming to the Lighthouse is this is a place of innovation, of community. And so
Just go with
when in doubt,
handheld.
reboot.
Can we just go with the handheld one?
My hands are full with my braille display.
No worries. I think this is good for now. Or should I switch on? Hello, check. Let's go with this one, mic. I have a lapel mic. I have another one. Yeah.
That could be too many mics.
Do we
It's on now.
Do we have amplification? Okay. Hopefully it's not just me that's full of static and it'll keep going. Well, thanks. It's nice to be here and to be, as I said, among this community of innovators and community folks. Thanks to the Lighthouse and to Envision for inviting me. I have to mention what I just put my mic on to is a San Francisco map tie. So just so you have that perspective. Many of you will know that I've been working on accessible navigation for a long time. Sharon went back 120 years. I'm going to skip forward a little bit and say go back 50 years, 70s through maybe the next 10 or 20 years. And I'm going to do that in 15 minutes. So I thought a little bit of reflecting on where we've been and how technology has evolved can say a lot about where it's going to go and how long it'll take. Alternative blindness tools and techniques really focus around two main areas: getting around, so transportation and so forth, mobility, and reading. And so we've really gone from a point where we're being read to by people. Remember that? Just readers. I had 11 readers in graduate school. That same thing today, I'd probably have one reader. The rest would be text to speech. We went to tapes, and then we had speech synthesis, and of course, Braille displays got going in the late 70s, 80s, and they're smaller and not exactly less expensive because we're still a small incidence market. Interestingly, we started out with people to those other technologies, and then we found ourselves back realizing, hey, we still need sighted people once in a while. They're helpful. Driving cars, and then on services like Aira and Be My Eyes. So what that really says is it's all about alternative tools and techniques. We need to have a whole toolbox going on. And so we have to know about the technology and know how it's going to evolve and which thing to pick, because the one thing, as Sharon says, is we're not exactly a rich group. Some blind people are, but by and large, a lot of people are unemployed. And certainly all of these kinds of tools, particularly if you're talking about Braille displays, are pretty darn expensive. Other things that have evolved kind of interestingly, and how long have they taken? You think about when we went from keys and knobs to touch screens and icons, and how that's changed our world. And I have to say, I was among the first who cursed touchscreens on the iPhone when they came out, and I was not an early adopter. But there was an avalanche that I just eventually had to go along with, because touchscreen was just what was happening in the mainstream market. And fortunately, ways were found to deal with that touchscreen. But the same thing on appliances and other devices, having touchscreens has really been challenging for us. We think about OCR and how it went from the Kurzweil reader the size of a washing machine to Arkenstone readers, which were like a desktop computer, to different kinds of smartphones, the NFB readers, and then to the eventually to OCR on iPhone. And now we have many apps. We have so many apps to choose from. Now the question is, which one should I use? Well, guess what? Like everything else, have multiple ones in your toolbox. And in terms of other things that use both in work and play, we used to do our research and find out about things manually. You go into a library, you call somebody up, and now we went to Google and those kinds of queries. And now we have conversational chat GPT. I mean, this is just amazing that you don't have to just keep repeating yourself or typing a lot of stuff into a text box. You can carry on a conversation with an AI bot, and it makes it all much better. Where will that go? Of course, we've been talking about AI for a long time. I mean, AI is the first part of Aira. And how long has Aira been around, Troy? 7 years. Okay, well, AI has been around for a long time, and it's being used in a lot of different ways, not just for this sort of thing. But a couple other examples of things that have evolved and taken a long time to get traction. Bone conduction headphones. I'm a big fan of the aftershocks. And ever since we had information that was portable, I kept thinking, how can I get this information when I'm walking around or even be on a phone call and not have it cover my ears? Yeah, those of you who love AirPods, I'm not a fan of putting anything in my ears when I'm walking around. You get run over and it ruins your day. So I'd like to have my ears uncovered. And I had bone conduction headphones back in the early 2000s. They were expensive, they were heavy, they required a lot of power. So those aftershocks probably came out 10 years ago, 12 years ago. So it took a good 10, 15 years for that kind of technology. And that was a huge breakthrough because it's a tool for blind people with everything we use. I couldn't end without talking about getting around, because that's a key component that hasn't been addressed nearly as well as information access and reading. And that really has evolved from where it was strictly manual and we took buses to today where we have rideshare. I think that's one of the greatest innovations this century, is having rideshare and the independence that it gives us. Is it a hassle? Do we have dog rejections? Yeah, it's a pain, but I'll trade that pain for having to wait around hours for buses or being dropped off at the wrong stop, or taxis that also would skip dogs and cost more and take an hour before they show up. So hooray for getting around, access, independence with rideshare. And all of these things contribute to the workplace. So you can't get to the job efficiently unless you know these tools and you use them. Well, when you get there, what do you do? What tools do you use? Well, you need all this kind of OCR stuff. And certainly the next big evolution in that is looking at how camera glasses evolve. And Google Glass has been around for a long time, 10 years or more. and maybe some other versions of camera glasses before that. And so now we're seeing the Envision glasses in the mainstream blindness market. And there's other models. It's always good when you have competition because it helps to push each other. So those kinds of tools, which will make hands-free use, really revolutionize all sorts of aspects of our lives. Because the one thing that's constant among blind people, we're all different in many ways, but the one common thing is one hand is occupied with a dog or a cane. You got one hand for coffee or a suitcase. There's no hands left. So hands-free action for reading, for use with Aira, for use with GoodMaps, which is my current company I'm working on for indoor navigation. That's another new frontier. And we can get you to the building. What happens once you get to a building, an airport, hospital, government building? There's really important to have turn-by-turn navigation in those buildings, and that's what GoodMaps is up to. I guess just a word about the future is that you can look at all these different evolutions of technology and say, yeah, they've taken 10 or 20 years to evolve. Not unusual for something from research project university to implementation to get to the point where it's actually functional. I was working on indoor navigation in the 90s. And so just in the last couple of years, it's become economically viable and accurate. Lots of these other technologies, same thing. So 10 to 20 years. That doesn't mean you have to wait around until they're perfect. It's great to start using them. And if you know their strengths and weaknesses, then you can make the most of those strengths because you know how to fill in the weaknesses with alternative tools. So I think in the next 10 to 20 years, we're going to see, I mean, hands-free glasses are just going to be part of regular glasses, just built into our everyday life. It's just something you use. You don't have to tie up a hand holding a phone out. It'll just be something that that's part and parcel of what we're doing. So I'm looking forward to the evolution of that and other technologies, and I'm sure you'll hear more details about different ones by the companies that are represented here today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. Are you okay? Great. Super. Well, that's food for thought. And keeping on the theme of that, we've got a great lineup of folks from different companies and different technologies. And I'm going to hand over first to Troy from Aira, who's here in person.
Hello. Hey, everyone. How you doing? All right. I'm going to put this microphone on. It's great to be here. Thanks, Sharon, for hosting this. Thanks, Team Envision, for coming up with this idea. It's also great to be here. I grew up here in the Bay Area. I've seen the evolution since moved to San Diego, where it's a little slower, but ultimately, it's good to be here today talking about the workplace. I've got a few slides. I'm going to do my best to describe them as I go, but something to know, again, Aira's been around for about 7 years. We've come a long way. We also started with glasses. I'm right now wearing Envision glasses, which are awesome because they provide a lot of value. And waiting for the slides to go. Otherwise, here we go. So first slide, Aira visual interpreting. So that's a word I just want you to think about, visual interpreting. It's a powerful tool for the workplace. Next. See the site-dependent people in their slides, right? We have to wait for the transition. No? So let's see if I can memorize the first slide because I thought it was an interesting start. So back in 2017, when Aira first launched really commercially, I'm going to give you a couple prompts. What percentage of usage was used in the workplace? I'm going to answer this at the end, so just think about that. What percentage is used today? How much usage is in the workplace? And then lastly, what will it be in 5 years? We're going to answer those at the end. So what is it about accessibility that Mike didn't already cover? It is an emerging field that's always growing. I think ultimately when we think about visual interpreting here at Aira, professional visual interpreting, we are the backstop. We are the Oops. The other point about technology is it sometimes fails. In fact, I was going to use the metaphor. Mike was up here, he's struggling with his mic. Aira is when your accessible tech does not work. Sometimes you need someone else to provide, extra information, extra assistance. And here we are on the slides, and we might need extra assistance. Next slide. So what you see up here is a diagram of Troy trying to explain our view or a view of assistive technology. What it says at the top is Aira's visual interpreting closes the gaps between purpose-built tools. So whether it's navigation apps, braille notebooks, magnifiers, text object face scene recognition, screen readers, there's a bunch, right? And Mike, you said it, there's a toolbox there. The way we look at visual interpreting, it's there when those tools don't meet the need. They're not efficient enough. And over time, those tools are going to get more powerful. But at the base, you can always depend on visual interpreting if that's what you need, if that's something to solve for because your assistive tech isn't working as needed. It also provides a second advantage with employers. We all know that many employers are, with 70% employment, they don't have as much experience working with blind or low vision individuals. So there's always some apprehension about what it's going to mean. We have found at Aira that providing a tool, an accessibility tool like Aira, relieves some of that, some of its unfounded concern, right? But ultimately provides a solution, not just for the individual, but for an employer who isn't quite sure how to fully accommodate an individual. Next slide. And that really comes down to a quote I think you guys all know, or some may know, which is, at the base of accessibility is the idea that I want to be able to do what I want, when I want, how I want, and without impacting others. And so I think by deploying a visual interpreting service, that last piece especially can relieve some of the pressure on the employer as it relates to accommodating them for things that they're not yet used to. Next. So I'm going to play a quick demonstration of just one individual using Aira in a work situation. For those who may recognize the voice, this is Tiffany Minaj.
Hi, Tiffany. Thank you for calling Aira.
All right, the video is not going to play. Here we go, right? Like technology sometimes fails. So I'm going to be the human, the visual interpreter describing. So what we see a lot in the workplace, we have a desktop product. It allows someone to connect to an agent and do all kinds of things, share documents. In this case, Tiffany got back from CSUN. She was doing her expense report, and it was more efficient for her to upload that to the agent so that the agent could review not just the information, but also spot an error in the expense report and send it back to her. Next. So what's the future of employment? Removing visual barriers access to information, I believe, is a right. I really do. I mean, bear witness, we've had almost 10 million sessions in total. I'm going to reveal how many have been in the workplace. And there are gaps, even with all the tools, but it is a right. And ultimately, technologies like Envision, GoodMaps, AI, all the pieces will improve. Mike talked about it. And visual interpreting, ultimately, what we see is it's going to be more deeply integrated with those tools and more broadly deployed, allow us to be more efficient. And the community will move closer to their desired independence through employment. So now we can answer those questions. What was it? So in 2017, the number of calls related to employment, 2%. Okay. Today, we looked at it literally on the flight up here. I was like, what is the answer? It's greater than 50%. I think that's pretty amazing, especially given we're approaching 10 million sessions at Aira. So that's really impressive. Still a long way to go. In 5 years, what percent of calls will be work-related? Well, that's why I'm here today. I think Aira can do a piece of it, but it's really our collective efforts to raise awareness about visual interpreting and accessibility. With that, I thank you for your time, and I look forward to the next speaker. Who will that be? Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Troy. Thank you very much. That's great. No, our next speaker is actually Rebecca. And Rebecca has created something really quite, I think, brilliant, called Revoca, if I'm pronouncing that right. Now, this is where the fun starts because she's joining us via Zoom. So at this point, I'm going to hand over to Kartik to bring her onto the screen.
Hi, everybody. I am here and I am gonna need to do some screen sharing. Oh, I see myself. That's perfect. There I am. Just wanted to give a quick introduction. I'm very sorry that I can't be in person with you today, but I'm very excited to be coming to you live from Baltimore, Maryland, actually from my own place of work, my own office. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about Revoca. So our technology, unlike many of the ones you'll hear about today, has been very specifically designed for people with moderate vision impairment. And the reason we've done that is really based on my own personal experience growing up with a moderate vision impairment as a result of albinism. So I have albinism. I've had it obviously my entire life. And as a result of that, I really found growing up that there wasn't any options for assistive technology for people with for people in the non-blind low vision population. And so that is why we created Revoca, to help enhance existing vision in the workplace, at a train station, really anywhere you need to be, instead of totally defaulting to audio or text to speech or braille, which is obviously very important for the blind population. So I'm just going to jump right into it and show you what we've built. Can I have screen sharing privileges? Is everybody able to see my screen here? Oh.
We can see your screen, but yeah, you might also have to explain it to people exactly what they're seeing.
Okay, that is fine. So here's what I'm going to do. We're going to use this bottle of hand sanitizer that's probably about 15 or 20 feet away from me as kind of a demonstration object. So you can imagine that this is just about anything that you might need to see across the room. And what we can do is zoom all the way in. And so now we've gotten a whole lot closer, and the words, the lettering on the bottle are a whole lot clearer. What we can additionally do is add a whole bunch of contrast to this image so that it is a whole lot more visible. We can also totally invert the image. So now what was white text on a light blue background is now black text on a whitish background. And if that's not enough, we can actually add additional color filters that will just help create as much of a difference between the color of the words and the color of the background as possible, so that this suddenly becomes readable. And considering how far away I am from this, you could think of this as very much maybe like a presentation that you have to watch or give during a work event. Another thing that a lot of Revoca users will do is use the Revoca app to spot check on their computer. So maybe I'm having a hard time reading some of the small letters here under news. But what I can actually see now, without needing to get right up super close to my monitor like I would normally have to do, I can see that it says, learn more about Revoca's revolutionary technology for low vision. Other things we can do are, maybe you are, I know I've done this, if you're on a work trip or something and you need to put your makeup on, but the only mirror that's available is the one over the sink. You can use Revoca to zoom in actually on your own face. Here, we're getting real up close and personal today. So this is my own face, and we can still add a whole bunch of contrast. If you're maybe in a hotel room that's specifically dark, you can add a whole lot of additional exposure. Again, meant to help you enhance the existing vision that you do have to be able to accomplish these tasks independently. I really love that quote that Troy showed earlier about doing things when you want and how you want, and really without needing to cause any disruption to other people. And that's really what Revoca has been intended to do. Something else you can do with our technology is, maybe if you want to read a particular document, you can actually pause the screen. So now I can kind of move my phone around, but the screen is still paused. I can still zoom in and see all of the different words, and the formatting is still exactly the way that it was on the document. which is very important when it comes to charts or graphs or tables. And I can still add all different types of adjustments like inversion, like different exposure options, like different contrast, to really, again, just create this to be as readable for me as I want it to be. Last but certainly not least, you can actually also turn on your cameras or your phone's flash so that you can illuminate anything that might need a little bit of extra brightness, whether that's a menu at a restaurant. I have a black cat, and I have used this functionality to find her when she was hiding under the bed because it was dark under there and she was black and I could not find her. And so I actually used our technology to make sure that she was actually under the bed and had not, in fact, gotten out of my apartment. We've seen people use Revoca for all sorts of different things, between navigating at airports or at train stations. We've seen people use it for, as I mentioned, spot checking on a computer monitor. Every which possible use case. I mean, we have a user who uses it to play in an orchestra so that they can follow along with the orchestra conductor in real time, which I just think is an incredibly interesting use of a technology like this. And so it is really meant to be as dynamic as you want it to be and as fully customizable as you need it to be. So thank you again for this time. Super excited to be able to share this with you today, and really have a ton of respect for all of the other speakers in the room. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Rebecca. That was amazing. I can't wait to try it out and find my dog when she hides in the dark spots around the house.
Absolutely.
Great.
And you can find it on the iOS App Store, and it's Revoca, Rebokeh.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Please stay on, Rebecca. So for the questions and answers at the end, if you've got time, that would be lovely. Great. I am actually going to go to bring on back up Mike May to tell us a little bit with his other hats on about GoodMaps and give us an update there. Mike, I'm going to give you the speaker.
I can do the handheld mic. Yeah, thanks. I'm glad you said what that was, because I was assuming it was an app and you just point your phone around. But if it's in the App Store, I guess that answers that question. I want to talk to you about GoodMaps and indoor navigation. I mentioned it a little bit, but you might wonder, how is it being done? I think probably 2015 or 16, we came to the lighthouse here and we put in Bluetooth beacons. When I had my company, Sendero Group, we were coming up with, along with a number of other companies, Bluetooth beacon systems for indoor navigation. And those are real small modules that you stick on the wall and they help you to locate where you are indoors. But Bluetooth really wasn't designed for positioning. It's more for earphones and speakers and connectivity, but not so much for precise positioning. So we found that although it was a great experiment, it wasn't really something that was the most accurate. And in a place like the Lighthouse that's designed for blind people to get around easily, you also didn't really need it once you were here a time or two. So we have evolved from that to the last couple of years. GoodMaps started using LiDAR, which you might remember from Google cars and street mapping and other kinds of applications, very expensive systems with multiple sensors on top of a van driving around getting street view data. Well, now that technology has been reduced to a handheld device, and a person, a mapper can now walk around in a building and image the inside of this room and all the hallways and everything else in the building, pretty much in the time it takes you to walk through the building. So an hour, 2 hours, something like that. Once that LiDAR image is created, it's uploaded to the cloud, which is really probably just someplace in Kansas. And the cloud hosts this incredible image, and every square inch of that image has a geocode. It has an XY reference, just like we have with GPS outdoors. And so once our mappers process that and put in all the labels and add our secret formula, then I can come along with the iPhone or Android camera, walk through that space. It picks up those walls, the ceiling, the floor, everything that was in there, compares what it sees in my vicinity with that Kansas image and tells me where I am in San Francisco. It's pretty amazing. The challenge, of course, is it economically feasible? Will venues adopt it and pay for it? It's much cheaper than putting up hardware, both in terms of installation and maintenance. So we think it is economically feasible. The venue does pay for it. The apps are free. So that makes it easy for the user. But now the big challenge is, how do we get it implemented in lots of buildings? This was the same challenge with GPS and mapping when it first started evolving in the 90s. And now GPS is part and parcel of what everybody does. And you do curse at your GPS once in a while, or it gets lost, or something's out of date. You're going to have that same sort of experience with indoor navigation. It's not going to be perfect 100% of the time, but it is pretty effective. The only locations around here so far that are implemented, one is the Zellbach Auditorium at UC Berkeley, and the other is a joint project between the Lighthouse and BART and GoodMaps that we've put in a MacArthur BART station. So we're piloting it in BART, and I'd love to see it come to the Civic Center BART next time. When I pop out of the train, I'm always wondering, which door do I head for to get to the Lighthouse so I don't end up across the street? So that's our challenge. There's a lot of uptake. Our strongest acceptance so far has been in England, where we're in dozens of railway stations. But once you prove it in different places, then others say, oh, I want to have that too. I think my favorite location that I've tested recently, one was the Portland Airport. That was pretty fun. But the other was a mall in Vancouver, British Columbia. I hate malls. I've always been very destination oriented going to a mall for obvious reasons. You can't really window shop if you can't see the signs, and malls are pretty complicated. And I went into this mall that we'd mapped and spent a couple hours just wandering around. I was ostensibly testing, but I was actually testing the coffee, the chocolate, the potential gifts for a few people. I really had a blast just wandering around and exploring this mall on my own. So you think of those kinds of experiences that are possible and how our environment will change in the next 5, 10, 20 years, where we get used to the fact that, well, everything's mapped. If I want to have turn-by-turn navigation indoors, I have it. And it works well with an Aira agent. If you need some help, something isn't accurate enough, or you need to have multiple tools, we still are going to be doing that forever, as far as I know. So that's a little snippet about GoodMaps. Thank you.
Brilliant. Our next guest speaker is from Be My Eyes. He's joining us remotely, and I just want to make sure I'm getting his title right. It's Joe Weber, and he's manager from Accessibility Solutions. Hi, Joe. How are you?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, welcome. I'm going to give you the floor. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone. So again, my name is Joe Weber. I work for Be My Eyes, specifically helping with our business partnerships with brands all over the world that provide support in the Be My Eyes app, just like our global network of volunteers. And for those of you who don't know, a couple weeks ago, we announced a pretty exciting feature that is in partnership with OpenAI, specifically with their new launch of ChatGPT-4, which now has image-to-text capabilities. So for those of you who have seen ChatGPT, right now it's mostly used as a chat feature that is incredibly quick and intelligent when providing information to you. Now, Be My Eyes has become the exclusive company, whether it's accessibility or just general technology, that is piloting the image to text feature. What does this mean for Be My Eyes users globally? Well, very soon, every single Be My Eyes user, for absolutely no cost at all, will be able to interact with what we are calling a virtual volunteer instead of speaking to a general volunteer, which will still very much be an option, just as our company support is. But now you'd be able to interact with the app completely virtually with AI providing image to text guidance for pretty much anything in your day-to-day life. So today I'm going to do my best to demo this feature using VoiceOver on an iPhone to show you how it will work. Right now, if you happen to be a Be My Eyes user, you can register and join our waiting list to become a virtual volunteer user. The product is just in beta right now, so we only have about 50 selected users who are trying out the service. Hopefully, in the next 6 months or so, it will be available for everyone. But here today, just wanted to describe a little bit more how it works, and of course, letting you know that this is something that we hope that anyone can take advantage of, regardless of their level of sight or regardless of how they identify when it comes to their blindness or vision. So what I'm going to do is actually share my phone screen here and walk you through and talk you through a demo of this image to text feature. But for those of you who can't see here, in very short, if you've ever used Be My Eyes, what you're doing is you signing up with an email totally for free, and through that you are able to connect to a volunteer, and now a virtual volunteer, to get help with day-to-day tasks, anything that requires identification. And now this AI feature is basically going to look at an image with a photo that you take and in real time provide guidance and descriptions of what that image is. And then it basically turns into a standard ChatGPT functionality where you can continue to ask it questions that are relevant to that product or whatever you're working with. So now I'm going to pull up my phone screen onto this call and talk you through a little bit about how this feature is coming to life. So I have started by sharing my phone screen. My VoiceOver accessibility feature is now listed on that screen. And I'm not sure if the audio will actually display through the camera, but what I'm going to do is open up the Be My Eyes app. Soon if you've ever used the app before, there's an option to call a volunteer or call an existing company partner. Very soon, there will be a third button on the Be My Eyes app home screen, which immediately pops up when you open the app, called Virtual Volunteer. Now, the first step into receiving this type of support is clicking a button that will say Add Picture. This is your opportunity to take the picture of the image that you're going to receive support with. So what I've done here on my screen is I've actually lined up 4 different drinks that I found in my refrigerator. I have a root beer, a ginger ale, a sparkling water, and a flavored sparkling water. All 3 are very different brands with different descriptions. And what I'm going to do is take a picture of that image. Now, if the picture is unclear or a little blurry, or you didn't quite get it right, depending on what your level of sight is, the ChatGPT will essentially tell you and ask you to take another picture if it's not totally clear. But in this case, I now have a text prompt where I can simply ask, what am I looking at? I'm going to click Ask Question. And right now it's computing an answer. Should only take a few seconds. And I immediately have a response from ChatGPT directly in Be My Eyes. The response says, hi there, based on the image you have sent, I can see 4 beverage containers on a countertop. From left to right, there's a bottle of Henry Weinhard's root beer, a bottle of Canada Dry Ginger Ale, a can of Liquid Death Mountain Water, and a bottle of sparkling ice grape raspberry flavored water. Is there anything else you would like to help me describe in more detail? Realizing this is a very quick use case here, but our intention is in the same way that we created a global community of volunteers and company partners to be able to assist blind, low vision people in their day-to-day life. The fact of the matter is, what's a better way to increase that independence, but to be able to answer those questions without any other human interaction and completely relying on artificial intelligence from the leading company in the world, being OpenAI, to receive visual support. So now through the app, while you'll still be able to connect to a volunteer, and in fact, you'll get a prompt in the app that will say, hey, if you need additional visual support, just call a volunteer or call a company partner. We are incredibly excited, number one, to provide this service to our users globally, totally for free, but also to help OpenAI adjust its algorithms and technology to be as accessible and usable as possible for anyone, regardless of their level of sight. Happy to answer any other questions about the service, and our friend Hobie, who will be presenting a little later today, is one of those test users. And of course, working closely with companies like Envision to work on other integrations that will make this usable across different technologies beyond just a smartphone. But in short, that is the technology. Again, you can sign up for the wait list through your Be My Eyes app if you already have it. And if not, you can sign up. Be My Eyes is available on app stores and Google Play stores everywhere in the world. And all you have to do is put in your email, confirm your email address, and you'll be ready to make calls in the platform. So that is all I have. I really appreciate everyone's time, and I'll be around to answer any other questions in the chat or otherwise.
Thank you, Joe. That was really great. I think we're all very excited about all this great new stuff that the AI can bring. I am now going to pass it over to our next speaker, which is somebody I know very well. Kartik Kannan, CTO from Envision. Take it away, Kartik. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Vanessa. All right. So thank you, everybody, firstly, for showing up today. I hope the inside is just as sunny as the outside for you all with all the cool demos that you guys have been seeing. My name is Kartik. I'm one of the founders of Envision. And I know a lot of you know about the Envision glasses here, but I'm just going to give you a brief idea about them in the first place. The Envision glasses, I'm wearing them right now. They're a pair of AI-powered smart glasses that have a camera on them and a speaker on them. And so what it basically does is it captures the visual world around you and converts them into speech. It basically comes with a bunch of AI functionality that's built into it. So you could use it to read text in over 90 different languages from pretty much any printed surface, could use it to recognize faces, objects, and so much more. And we also believe in the human connection as well. So you can also go ahead and make video calls directly from these glasses to a friend or a family member. You could also use Aira if you want to on these glasses as well. So you could call an Aira agent completely hands-free from the Envision glasses. That's the present. That's what a lot of you all know and use. What I'm here to talk to you about is the future, what's going to be coming on the glasses in the next few weeks and the next few months, you could say. One of the first things that I want to talk about is personalizing the AI on your glasses. So again, today, if you were to use, you probably are familiar with a lot of AI apps that can help you detect the different objects around you. So you could say, okay, help me find a cup, or help me find a table, help me find a chair. That's what AI could do today. But what we're working on is ways where you can personalize this AI. And you could go ahead and say, okay, help me find my coffee cup versus my wife's coffee cup, if you're the kind of person who doesn't like to share coffee cups. You could use it to go ahead and also teach it specific objects. Like, for example, you want to have it recognize your AirPods case in a sea of other objects that are there around you. So this kind of personalization was previously not possible because objects are a lot harder to teach an AI than you could do faces, because there are not a lot of similar things between different types of objects, right? Whereas human faces are fairly similar. So this is one of the things that we are working on right now. I don't have a demo of that today on these glasses, but you can expect them to be on the glasses and hopefully the app as well in the coming months. The second thing, of course, you've seen a small demo of this whole GPT stuff with Be My Eyes. We've also been working on integrating GPT into the Envision glasses as well, because being able to scan take pictures and get, for example, the text information in them is one thing, but being able to actually go ahead and ask questions of the document that you just scanned, so you can get access to that information faster and in a more hands-free way, is a completely different thing. So what I've done here is I've paired these glasses to the speaker I just have a Bluetooth speaker here. So I've paired the Envision glasses to the Bluetooth speaker so you can hopefully hear the output. And I also have a document here with me, with which I'm going to basically scan the page. And then once I've scanned the page, I can actually ask questions of that document. So let me just go ahead and turn this on.
Instant text and text.
Okay, so I hope that's loud enough for everyone to hear. All right. So what I have with me is a document that talks about the different, I think the floor plan of the lighthouse and all the different information there is to it. So it's got information like what the total occupancy is and so on and so forth. So I'm just going to go ahead and scan it with the glasses first, and then I can go ahead and ask questions of it. So I'm on the scan text feature. I do one finger double tap. I just went ahead and scanned the document right now. It's processing, and then it's going to start speaking it out to me.
9Q FT. Total occupancy 127 can be divided.
All right. So I can go ahead and ask it like very specific questions like, what's the total occupancy of the mingling area?
Envision is answering your question. The total occupancy of the mingling area is 50 to 60 standing.
So that information is previously something you had to really go through the whole document to figure out and so on. So you could even ask it things like, give me a summary of the text that I'm trying to read. Or if you're like me, you can also ask it like really funny questions as well. Since we're in California, the birthplace of rap music, I'm going to go ahead and ask it something really interesting right now.
Total occupancy.
Can you create a rap song out of this in the style of Dr. Dre?
Envision is answering your question.
It's time to write the song. I'm sure it's going to be worth it. Yeah, I could if you have if you can beatbox, yeah, I can dance to it.
Listen up, verse 1. Listen where you can rent. Listen up, y'all. Let me tell you about a spot where you can rent some space and make your event hot. Lighthouse for the Blind, founded back in 2002. Their facilities are prime. You gotta check it, fool. With 9 rooms to choose from, you can't lose, son. Have a meeting, throw a party, get your work.
Okay, so we're going to stop right there. So that was for fun, but you could basically ask it pretty much any question, and as long as it's based on the text and beyond, you can go ahead and get answers to it. This is something that we have out as a beta on the Envision glasses today. So if you're any Envision glasses users here in the crowd, want to give this a shot, you can go ahead and switch to the beta and then give this a shot. And we're already seeing some great feedback coming in from people all over the world in terms of using the glasses and using it to scan, for example, menus and then asking specific questions of it. So basically what we're wanting to do with the glasses is give you faster access to information, and it doesn't get faster than this at the moment. So this is one such thing that you can do with text, right? And like Joe was showing, we've also been thinking about how we can bring images and text together, and we've been working on a version of this feature called Ask Envision, where you could take pictures of things around you and ask questions of the picture itself. right? This is using a mix of both open source technology and the ChatGPT function from OpenAI. And we hope to be partnering with companies like OpenAI, with BeamEyes, to see if we can bring those technologies directly onto the glasses themselves. So I'm going to show you a quick demo of that as well.
One finger, scan text. Colonize, write, recognize, find out, detect, like, call and ally, more features. More Be My Eye, ask Envision.
So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to take a picture, and then I'm going to ask it a simple question based on the picture.
Ask Envision. Envision is processing your image. Perfect. Result is a group of people sitting in chairs in a room.
So this is a
If you have any
caption.
question, trigger voice command by pressing hint button.
So this is a caption that it gives you right now. I can ask it questions like, approximately how many people are in the room?
15.
Okay, it can basically see a field of view of 15, so it can also count people for you. You can even, go outside, take a picture, ask it questions of, the documents that you, or the things that you see around you. You could take pictures of even text, and it can read out text to you as well. And we're hoping that this technology gets more and more impressive and more useful as time goes by. And all of them, and we hope to bring all of them onto the Envision glasses as well. So that's a little glimpse into the future of where AI on wearables like the Envision glasses. So once again, thank you all for coming, and I hope you guys have a great time with the panel as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Kartik. You can just imagine what's been going on the last week with me on the road with these guys, right? Rapped songs, all sorts of things I can't disclose. Anyway, all good fun. We're now coming to the panel moment, which is super exciting. And I'm very, very happy to introduce some wonderful people today here in real life, and there in real life online in that cloud thing. First up, I'd like to introduce a new colleague of ours, wonderful lady. I'd like to introduce you to Vicky. Vicky is our community manager, and she's going to be our moderator for this panel. Come on up, Vicky, and we guide you to the seat. Here we are, sweetheart. Where would you? Yeah, it's on you here. So I think if you come up just. Oh, other side. Okay, sorry. Some bit of stage management here. Sorry about that. Here you go, my love. You can help Vicky with that. Cool. And then we have, let me just get everybody's names right, so I'm not going to pronounce everybody wrong here. Elanda and Tunis, is that right? Oh, great. Elanda joining us from LinkedIn. So Elanda, have a seat. Thank you, please. And then I'm actually like to introduce Hunter Benedict. And he's from Google Cloud and product manager. So Hunter, grab a stool. We don't need you facing that way. You can actually face us here. Brilliant. And then we have, if all being well, Paul Kartik's running around here. We've got a couple of other people joining us as well remotely. We have Hobie Wedler, who many of you might know. He's quite a legend, actually. Blind entrepreneur, chemist, educator, and just an all-round good guy. And we also have John Gassman, who is very active in the Envision community as well. I can vouch for a wonderful human being. And he also works for guest reservations at Disney for the last 20 years. So we have really interesting panel, but enough of me. I'm going to pass it over to Vicky to, just start things up. Yeah, Hobie is having some traffic issues. Oh, brilliant. We'll just bring on the other speakers. Thank you.
Let me know when to kick it off, Vanessa. It should, yeah. Can everyone hear me? Yeah. Okay, great.
Loud and clear.
Awesome. Give me the go ahead. Test. Okay. All right. Thank you so much again, everyone, for coming. It's great to see you all here. And to start with, I would like to request that each guest in our panel introduces themselves. And if you're comfortable, at least for my curiosity, and I believe for the curiosity of maybe some of the other audience members, if you could describe, maybe a little bit about yourself, what you do, and a little bit of a visual aspect, if you feel comfortable, maybe what you've got on or what you look like. So starting with Yolanda.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much. It's really a privilege to be here. My name is Yolanda. I'm an enterprise product manager at LinkedIn. I spearheaded the internal accessibility program at LinkedIn, and I also focus on hybrid work and the products that support our employees. So today I have curly shoulder-length hair and my comfy black sweater that I really love. And yes, thank you so much.
Awesome. All right. And then now moving on to Mr. Hobie Wedler.
Hello. Thank you all so much. Good afternoon. This is Hobie Wedler. Greetings from the baggage claim at the Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport, where you may hear the mayor of Dallas giving us some great PSA about why Dallas. Oh, gosh, here's the former mayor. What I love is just companies like Envision that are making a huge difference in so many of our lives, basically bringing the world quite literally to our fingertips, to our ears, using modern day technology. I'm an entrepreneur. I earned my PhD in chemistry in 2016, only to figure out that I didn't want to practice chemistry as an academic and wanted to head into industry. If it takes you getting a PhD to realize you don't want to work in that field, maybe you've gone a little too far, you're a Gemini like myself. I have a couple of companies now. I'm a food and beverage product development consultant. I do a lot of work in the education space around all foods and beverages, from the wine industry to the agricultural and beef industry to many, many others. And I have a creative and marketing company called SensePoint that I'm one of the principals of, that does all sorts of really fun marketing and communications work, including now for Lighthouse, which we're very excited about. I'm a 35-year-old Caucasian male, and I am sitting here in my polo and partially zipped quarter zip fleece, and I've got a pair of Levi jeans on. And again, I'm in a Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport baggage claim chair.
Awesome. All right. Definitely multitasking, huh? All right. And next, we're going to move on to Mr. Hunter.
Hi, thank you. I'm feeling wonderfully underqualified to be here, but I'm Hunter Benedict. I am a product manager at Google. I work on ads products and things. And I'm here primarily speaking on behalf of our family, who we had a daughter who was born with low vision. So I'm very new to a lot of this, and I can assure you I will make many comments that need to be changed to try and understand what it's like to have low vision or no vision, because it's still something that I'm trying to figure out, to be completely transparent. I am a 6'4" Caucasian male. I'm also 35. And outside of that, I'm quite skinny, and my mother has told me multiple times I'm very handsome. So, that is a very subjective thing. Troy was mentioning dating and trying to explain, dating over their product, and it's something I personally never considered, but it's I'm learning a lot today, and I feel very privileged to be able to be here. So, thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Hunter. And last but not least, Mr. John Gassman.
Hello there, this is John, and I am 5'10", 180, and old. Comparatively speaking, I'm 68, just about ready to retire. I've spent almost 20 years with the Walt Disney Company, beginning in 2003. It'll be 20 years in May, and was the first totally blind person ever hired, for sure at the Disneyland Resort. We're not sure about Florida. But anyway, I was very, very lucky, and still am very lucky to have been very successful. I use all the technology mentioned today, with Aira and Be My Eyes a little bit, and also Envision, of course. And it's so good to hear the voices of a lot of the people that I got a chance to meet, some for the first time last week at CSUN. I love CSUN. I've been there for centuries, it seems. And my other main technology that I've used, and the one that really allowed me to become so successful at work, was JAWS for Windows, where I have booked theme park reservations and hotels for 20 years, and I've trained at least 18 blind people that I'm aware of. And I wondered why. Why do you want to know how many people I've trained? My manager asked me one day, and I said, I don't know. I just trained those 18 people, and I couldn't figure out why she was asking. I later found out that she was including that as a part of an article that she had to submit justifying why I had been nominated for and won the Walt Disney Legacy Award, which is a award where you basically are nominated for by your peers, and you emulate three of the characteristics that he had throughout his life, which was to dream, and I'm blanking on the other two right now, but dream, inspire, and shoot, well, that's 2 out of 3. We'll settle for that for now. And I was less than 0.5% of the entire company wins that award, and that's my proudest moment at Disney. But I love technology. I'm so happy to be here today, even remotely through Zoom. And if anybody has anything down the line to ask, I'll stick around for that as well. So thank you for inviting me, Envision. I really appreciate it very much.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Well, thanks to all of you for being here. And now we're going to kick off with what I think is a very critical and thought-provoking question. And that question is going to be, in your opinion, what is the biggest challenge facing people with blindness or low vision in the workplace? And I think I'd like to start with Hobie, if that's all right with you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Vicky. That's a really good question, and it's one that comes to mind a lot. What are the challenges that we face? What are we dealing with on a day-to-day basis that are challenging? What are the things that we sort of think about that could be better and that could be improved? And what I think of is not about what's hard for me, but what society doesn't know about what I can do. So for me, the answer to this question is all about expectations. I was born and raised in a family. I'm so lucky and fortunate to be born and raised in a family where my parents never lowered the bar and had extraordinarily high expectations. But what I find quite frequently is that oftentimes blind people aren't expected to come to work and bring their best selves and really have a seat at the table just like everyone else. And I told a little story at the grand opening of the Sirkin Center, which is one of Lighthouse's main manufacturing properties over in Alameda, California, which I'll just tell a very abbreviated version of here. I was finishing up with graduate school. It was April of 2016 to be exact. And when I was finishing up my PhD in organic chemistry, I'd done a lot of work in the food industry, basically helping explain science to sales and marketing teams and really help marketing teams understand how to talk about their products, and also really going out with those teams and spreading the news and the word about great products to buyers and stakeholders in the market from a scientific perspective, but also from just a fun and exciting and, hey, taste this, let's talk about it sort of perspective. So I was actually applying for a role at a very large company, one of the larger food groups in the world, as a translator, as a senior translator between R&D teams and sales and marketing teams. It was a position they hadn't offered before, but we were really involved with each other. I spent a whole day interviewing with them, and everybody was excited. I was impressed. I think most of them were impressed. And everybody said, "This is great. We can't wait to work with you," all this stuff. But the one person that was a challenge was HR. And I knew this was going to be a hurdle. And I got a call about a week and a half after that full day interview saying, "Hobie, from HR, saying, Hobie, we reviewed everything and you just aren't qualified. We can't work with you." So Okay, I'm sorry to hear that. You know, it was kind of a surprise because everybody had said how excited they were to work with me, and I expressed my enthusiasm and excitement, and I expressed the fact that I would work on all my accommodations, and it was going to be easy and painless for them. And my biggest cheerleader, my biggest supporter of the company, probably shouldn't have done this, but called me uh, about 3 days later and said, "I have to tell you that, you know, the reason that you were disqualified from the position is not because of your qualifications. It's quite the opposite. It's because the company corporate structure was worried about accommodating you and worried about what you could actually do and how much you were going to charge us and legal ramifications, you know, in terms of accessibility." And that, as you might imagine, was quite a letdown. It was quite a stunning realization that, you know, this world is full of people who don't really understand what blind people can do. And I realized that if I can't get a seat at the table, I got to build my own table. And that's why I became a entrepreneur. And I love what I do. I love going out there and showing people what I can do, not telling them, but really showing them what's possible. I really can't speak enough to just getting out there and doing what you love and taking on challenges and having fun with it. Again, back to Vicky's great question, I think the biggest challenge isn't what we deal with at work, but what people think we can do at work and showing them how much more we can do than they think we can. Vicky, I hope that answer was adequate.
It does. Thank you very much. And Hunter, what do you think is what for your daughter in the future? What do you think might be her biggest challenge, or other blind and low vision people? What do you think would be their biggest challenge in the workplace now and potentially in the future?
You know, I don't know the answer to that now. I think it's something we think about pretty consistently. You know, with our daughter, she's 3.5, but what has been the most energizing thing with her, and I think this speaks to what Hobie was talking about, was we had expectations that some things would be more difficult for her. And each one of those expectations has been something that hasn't been a focal point for us today. For her ability to, when we took her to school for the first time, school wasn't necessarily set up, but they had some tools to allow her to be able to thrive there. I thought she was going to be terrified in a new environment. She has this rabbit that she is obsessed with. She hasn't let go of it for 3 years. We took her to school and they said, you need to put the rabbit in the cubby. She put the rabbit in the cubby and she moved on. I thought that was going to be an issue. You know, she was very obsessed with her mother at the time, which I've been bribing her behind my wife's back for a long time to be obsessed with me. But whenever she was away, she would cry. She walked right into school. She forgot about mommy, forgot about Mr. Rabbit, and she started exploring everything in that school. Now she couldn't care less about my wife or I. She wants to go to school so she can play with some of her friends there. Awesome. When I think about what we were worried about was her ability to explore. And we thought that was going to be a really big hindrance to her opportunity to thrive at school. And she just overcame that. So I think, Hobie, what you're saying in people's expectations of handholding anyone with any type of difference from anyone else, it is a preconceived notion and a bias that you have on how human beings are able to adapt to situations. And I think the adaptability of anyone is much higher than the expectations of those around them. And so I think pushing her to overcome any challenges, to fight back on those challenges, whether it's expressing herself to a point saying, I can do this, I may need you to show me 1 or 2 things, but I am able to do this, and being really rigid about that belief is something that we're trying to instill in her so that she has the opportunity to do whatever it is that she wants. Now, I read Hobie's description at the beginning of this, and being a chemist, and I thought, like, that's shockingly amazing. There's a lot of, if we're talking about moles and small amounts of mixtures and things like that, there's a ton that goes into being really good at anything, whether you have vision or no vision. But there are benefits to not having the biases that come with being able to go about your life, just doing something the same way that you've always had to do it. And our daughter has taught us that there's a lot of different ways to be really successful at something, and that's a benefit. It's not a limitation.
Very cool. And now you're up, John. What do you think is the biggest challenge people face who are blind and low vision in the workplace today?
I think it's preconceived notions amongst most companies where they don't really understand what a blind person can do. They want to give it a shot, but they don't really know for sure until you get to the job and start working. I'm pretty lucky. Disney never exhibited that at all. They didn't know what I could do, and they talked to a lot of other companies, Marriott included, where my twin brother worked. And it wasn't until we got together and I did the interviews and I started working on the job that we learned that we could work together and overcome obstacles. People have told me a lot of times that one of the most amazing things they ever saw me and other blind people do was, and a lot of them were vice presidents who came out, they heard about these blind people who were doing this terrific work. So they came out to listen. And what they would do is they would tag us together with a couple of headsets. So literally, as I'm booking a theme park reservation for a hotel or whatever, I have JAWS in one ear, I have the guest who's calling in the other ear, and I'm talking to him and listening to JAWS at the very same time and looking up information. And I'm not listening to JAWS at a slow speed either. You gradually speed it up to the point where it's fast because you have to be able to hear it quick and move and be proactive and so forth. And they couldn't, and I was doing what everybody else was doing. I was just doing it in a different way. And it worked so that I could become extremely successful over 20 years. And I just, I can't thank Disney enough for giving me a try, and other companies in the same situation who give other blind people a try. And they find out that they're very successful. And of course, they are the ones who show up for work every day without missing too many days, because they know that getting that job and keeping that job is extremely difficult. So blind people are among your most loyal people who are going to be there day in, day out, whether they have to come into the office or work from home. They don't miss many days. So we've all been pretty lucky, those of us who've been working, and I'm only hopeful that in the future, other companies will see what a lot of us have done and take the plunge and hire other blind people who are qualified, not just any blind person, but those who are qualified and can do the work. So that's a long-winded answer, but I hope it answers your question.
It does. It's a great answer. Thank you so much. And Yolanda, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I'll come with it at a different lens. The pandemic moved a number of us to do remote work, and now you're seeing us going back and returning to the office, and something changed in that transition. Number one, the muscle memory of how to navigate inside an office was surprisingly gone. And many of us had to relearn how to traverse different buildings, different places. That's number one. Number two, the places and the people are dynamic now because of hybrid work. So you have a number of individuals who are returning to work and are there more than 3 days a week. They have a physical desk. It's in the same place every day. But for the rest of the crew, they drop into an open space, and it's never the same space twice. And there are collaboration spaces that are modular, and they're intended to be so that you can reorganize the seatings, the chairs, the tables, according to the collaboration objective of the day. Now, how do you navigate that kind of dynamic environment with confidence? Lastly, I'm cautious and very much aware that we're falling back into old habits, right? So when it comes to being in the office and collaborating, people see a whiteboard and they instantly write on it. Well, if you can't engage with that whiteboard, you can't engage, period. And you're disconnected. And we're falling into old habits that we have to be very cognizant that we now have the opportunity to rethink how we do things and not go back to the way we did them because, that's how we did it and we were familiar. But we really, really have an opportunity to reimagine how we work together and connect together and communicate with each other. And it's just so heartwarming to see all the technologies that are there. I can speak to how we're looking at incorporating a lot of it there, but just those are the key areas that I'm really cognizant of.
That is a perfect segue into my next question. And because you did such a wonderful job of that segue, I think I'm going to have you answer the question first. And that is, how do you feel that technology is, how do you envision technology addressing these challenges moving forward?
Oh my gosh, how much time y'all got? I am so excited. I am so excited about what's happening in AI, especially what we've seen with GPT-4. Let me talk you through the scenario of the day, and let me just kind of envelop some of the technologies we saw today. So you go to a building, you're not familiar with it. We're told to go to a particular conference room. How do I go to that conference room? Somehow we're guided towards it. You go to the conference room, right? And like, oh my goodness, what's in here? And now you have the musical trip hazards of the day. Where are the things? And oh my goodness, why is there a random beanbag in here, right? It's so hard to engage, right, in the physical environment. But look at the virtual volunteer, right, from Be My Eyes. You can envisage leveraging it in an incredible way, right? It can help you tell you what is in your environment. It can inform what is ahead. It can describe the layout of the room. It can share the people that are in with the Envision glasses, right? The doors are opening in an incredible way to have us finally live our lives on our own terms. And the technology is really ripe. It's really at the moment where we can transform us significantly. I just can't wait. We're just on the beginning of this journey. And the hope is all these technologies integrate and talk to one another and communicate with one another. Because so long as it remains fragmented, as Mike said, how many apps do you have to download? How many things do you have to, how many gadgets do you have to just, orient, right? Like how can these technologies become a ubiquitous platform? Really needs to be the end goal, but hold on to your seats. This is going to be a hell of a ride. I can't wait.
Awesome. And Hobie, what are your thoughts on this? How do you feel technology? So, I'm sorry?
Yeah, no, I sorry, you jumped in there. I love.
I'm sorry about that.
No, it's all good. I maybe a little bit of a delayed connection. Thank you, first of all, for that question. It's a really good one. I'm a chemist, but a lot of people don't know that I also majored in history, and I love looking at history. And what's really interesting when we look at some of the history of science and technology, we look at what was done 500 years ago, and we say that was silly. Wow, that's the stuff they were working on. It seems so not silly, but quite simple to us, right? And I feel like if in 500 years people look at what we're talking about today, they're going to say, but that's so simple. It makes it makes so much sense, but it's very primitive. So I think technology comes with time. And I think technology is the thing that is always evolving, is always changing. And we need to do our best every step of our journey and every step of the way to take the most advantage as we can of the technologies that are out there. As a blind chemist, what I'll tell you is that nobody can see atoms, right? I can't see atoms. You can't see atoms. Sighted folks can't see atoms. You know, chemistry is a cerebral science, and we actually spend a lot of time and money as chemists building instruments that can see atoms and molecules for us. So we spend millions and millions of dollars developing eyes that can see things that we can't see. And I like to think about this very simply as what we do as blind people. We just come up with ways and technologies to make the world more accessible and more available to us as individuals, right? And if we can do that to the best of our ability, we are winning, we are succeeding. So it's companies like Envision, it's companies like Be My Eyes, it's companies like Lighthouse, frankly, who are training people to use the technology they use and transforming the lives of people with vision loss every day, that give us the ability to leverage that technology and to move forward. Think about the fact that in 5 or 10 years, maybe 20 years, we'll be, as blind people, behind the wheels of cars, right? This is amazing. And that's a technology that wasn't developed just for us, but it was developed to make driving safer for everyone, which we happen to benefit from. And technology helps if and only if we embrace it and learn it and use it to leverage ourselves and springboard ourselves forward in the best way possible. Vicki, I hope that answers.
Yes, it absolutely does. Thank you so much. And John, what are your thoughts on this? How do you envision technology addressing some of these challenges moving forward?
Well, I'm very optimistic for the future of technology. There are probably people out there just starting to grow up who are emulating Walt Disney to dream, inspire, and create. Those are the three characteristics. And they bring
Right.
I brought it back. Yeah. They literally think about things, and maybe they're mainstream. A lot of the technology today is mainstream, so it's not necessarily all built for us. It just happens that we can benefit from a lot of it. And if we can benefit, and if sighted people can benefit from it, it'll go a long way in making it possible for everybody to enjoy their lives a lot more, regardless of whether it's assistive technology or any technology that you can dream of. And you know, who knew 100 years ago that people would be flying or driving or walking around with a pair of glasses on and reading text and you know, any of the things that we take for granted now today. I mean, how long have Aira and Be My Eyes and Envision haven't been around that long, but as blind people now, we're taking them for granted because they're such an integral part of our lives. And I think that's absolutely wonderful, and I can't wait to see. So I may be up in heaven watching it in a few years, but I mean, I can't wait to see what's going to come in the future. I think it's really exciting.
That's all. Hey, you never know. You could outlive all of us. I mean,
that's part of the technology.
With life longevity, right?
Yeah.
And Hunter, how do you envision technology addressing these challenges now and moving forward?
Yeah, I think the one thing with technology that a lot of people forget is technology's base foundation is people, right? There is no technology if there is no people. The reason that there are so many human beings on the planet is because we figured out how to bang two sticks together and make fire first, right? And then we grew from there. Technology itself, in order for us to have better technology, it requires an understanding of what the user behavior is for implementing that technology. And there's economics behind that and all of that, but put that aside. I think today, you know, when I was in middle school, after we had our daughter, I thought about this a lot, there was a portable, which is a building that's you kind of build in a couple days outside of the school for any kids that had a disability. Anyone who, I don't remember if they were low vision or deaf or anything like that, but there was a separate place for people who learn differently. When I take my daughter to school today, there is no separate place. Everyone's together. And what that does is it gives empathy to other people who have a different experience than maybe my daughter or someone else has. As people grow in that generation and have a more inclusive environment for everyone, people who are able to further some of these technologies understand that there is more use cases for an individual thing. Right now, we've been talking about ChatGPT and a lot of the image classification as a core technology to the glasses and things like that. The application of that was not for people with low sight. It was taking one technology that wanted to solve one problem, applying it to another one that I would be surprised if some of the founders of that didn't understand existed when they created it. And so as we have younger people who grow up in an accessible environment, understand the needs of people who are not like them, they're able to adapt and create things that are useful for a wide range of subsets of the overall superset, which is humanity in general. So I think the technology, there's a million things that could go, and 100 years we're having different conversations, but at its core, it is the application of people's empathy and where that empathy can be developed and understood for as wide a population as possible. And I think that is to me what is one of the most promising things nowadays that I've seen.
Awesome. Thank you. And so, Yolanda, I have a question. As Sharon reminded us at the beginning this afternoon, there is at least a 70% unemployment rate among the blindness and low vision community in the United States, and I believe in a lot of the rest of the world. If you had a magic wand, what would you do to reduce this and to increase workplace happiness?
We talked a lot about technology, and now, like Hunter, I'm going to shift to the people side. One thing that I think really can make an impact is that for individuals who have the privilege to hire people into a company, I think it is utterly important that all companies train the hiring managers well to be able to confidently support any team member of any background, of any capability. And I think that is key. I believe this is a very significant gap right now. I believe we have made incredible progress when it comes to awareness, incredible progress when it comes to technology. But I believe there is friction when it comes to an individual's confidence in saying, am I supported to make this role a success? Am I equipped to be a good manager and one that can make the team successful? And I don't think we've moved the needle there. And we really have to invest and make it very intentional in all the companies that do hiring to really initiate a program for managers to show them the way and for them to lead by example.
That is very all excellent points there. Hobie, what are your thoughts on this?
Thanks, Vicky. It's a great question. It's a complicated question as well. One of the things that I think is so important is something that I've talked about before, and I'll come back to, that matter of expectations, right? If we have low expectations of blind and visually impaired folks, it's going to be really hard for them to step up to the table and apply for a job and receive that gainful employment and really make that difference and lower that unemployment rate of 70%. And by the way, that announcement is annoying, but by the way, that 70% is in the United States. In the rest of the world, and particularly in the developing world, that rate is much higher, upwards of 97 to 98%, which is a scary thing to think about. If I had a magic wand, what I would do is I would do two things. I would train the blind and visually impaired folks that I work with, that I know, my colleagues, to be even more confident and to step up to the plate and say, give me a chance. I can do this, because we need to be that voice saying, we can do this. Try me out and see how it goes. And we really need to be, unfortunately or fortunately, we need to be better folks than the cited competition. So that's the first thing I would do. And the second thing I would do is very much aligned with what Yolanda said. I would really work with those people who are doing the hiring, those people who are making the differences in their work environments, and say, you need to give people more of a chance than you do. And you need to work with people with disabilities, and in particular, people who are blind and visually impaired, because we do deserve and have earned, I feel, a seat at the table. And just a quick note on diversity. If you build a more diverse team in the workplace, you are creating not just a bunch of 30-year-old white guys sitting around a table in their gray suits solving problems. You're creating a diversity of problem solving, a diversity of people. People of different ability statuses, people who have come from different socioeconomic statuses, people who come from so many different environments, that you really will create more effective solutions to problems, number one. And number two, solve problems in a more succinct and meaningful manner that will ultimately increase your bottom line. So that would be the magic wand that I would wave. Number one, get blind people to believe in themselves more. Number two, get people who hire to believe in blind people more and give us all a chance. And number three, thinking about how we can increase the overall diversity of the workplace and make a difference for every population we serve. Thanks for the great question, Vicki. I hope I answered it succinctly.
You did. Thank you for a wonderful answer. And John, what do you feel? What would you do if you had a magic wand?
Well, some of this has already been said before, but it is a two-pronged answer. One is you got to get companies who are willing, like mine has been, to give people an opportunity and to work together to make those opportunities come true. But I think also we have too many blind people out there, in my opinion, satisfied to sit back and collect a check each month, who are capable of working. And I know it's tough to get a job, but that shouldn't stop you. I mean, I know when 2008 rolled around and we had that huge number of layoffs, 10 or 11 people that were working with us decided, oh, it's easier just to sit back at home and collect a check. And that's where they went. And you shouldn't, I mean, I just think that's wrong. I think you just have to keep pushing, keep working, and show that you're one of the individuals who is able to be successful at a job. And I know some people are going to sit home and collect a check because they've got problems and they can't work. And that's one thing. But for those who are capable of working, you should never give up. And I think that the individuals as well as the companies, if they can work together, we'll have a lot more people employed. That 70% number is a huge number. It's going to take a while to go down, but it's been 70% for a long, long time. So I really hope that we can get that number to drop. It benefits everybody. So
it does, yes. And Hunter, what are your thoughts on this? For blind and low vision people, and even in the future for when your daughter gets to be of working age.
Yeah, growing up, I always thought of work as you go to an office and you have water cooler talks and all these sorts of things, like this traditional TV version of an office. There's other definitions of work outside of just corporate America. I don't know enough about the environment for people with low vision or blindness in the small business world, but I talked to this guy one time. We were at the Enchanted Hills camp with my daughter, and one of the counselors there was a blind man, and he was a therapist. I remember walking away from that conversation thinking, like what a wonderful profession for him to be in as a therapist. It removes, if I was seeing him, it removes my biases for being able to say something in some cases. It would give him the opportunity to be much more objective than, frankly, I could be. And I think there's a lot to be done to help people set up programs that will enable someone to have that type of job, a small business where maybe you're working for yourself, you have some support on billing and that sort of thing, but you can focus on, the human aspect of life. And jobs like being a therapist, I think are really optimal for that sort of thing. It's not just an office environment. The things that everyone else said are very valid. And I think that there's a lot of work to be done there too, but opening that range of possibilities is, in my opinion, would be key to getting that 70% number down, right? If we try to push everyone in one direction or make just one type of work accessible, it becomes really difficult at that point. It's not saying it's not worth doing, but there are other opportunities there where I think there are, frankly, some jobs that are better served for people that don't have the biases that sighted people do. Think about being a judge or something like that. Like there are jobs that are better served for certain populations, and I think that needs to be considered, and tools need to be available to be helpful to get something like that set up.
Well, thank you so much for that and valid points. And I mean, we could talk about this forever. We could talk about this for so much longer, but unfortunately, we have essentially run out of time. My last quick question, if you guys could all go around and just in 30 seconds or less, if any of you just have any last thoughts that you want to share with us, such as, what would be your advice for an individual seeking employment who is blind or has low vision, or whatever, any kind of last thoughts you want to give in 30 seconds or less. And we'll start with John.
I would say get a good education. I mean, go as far as you can possibly go. Start looking for a job and never give up. Make the employer feel like it would be a disadvantage not to hire you. And with positivity, I mean, you can go a long, long way.
Absolutely. And Hunter, what would be your last something that you would any last thoughts you have?
I come at this from a different angle, but for my daughter is to push her to do things that maybe she's uncomfortable with, is just make sure that she always has an opportunity to be successful. And for those that are a parent or a sibling of someone who has low or no vision, push them. I think, obviously do so in a respectful way.
Sure, definitely. Yeah.
So clear. Don't physically push them, but push them to be successful and give them the opportunity to do that. I think my wife does a really good job of that, where, for our daughter, if there's something that's hard, she'll sit her down and make sure she gets through it so that she understands that it is something she can be successful at.
Very cool. And Yolanda, how about you?
I'm just going to write on John's feedback. Embrace social media. Let it be your amplifier to show who you are, showcase your work, let yourself be known to the world. Let it out. Yes.
There you go. Very cool. And last but not least, Mr. Hovey, what are your thoughts?
It's a great question. You know what? Life is all about happiness. And if you can help by elevating someone's happiness and make them feel positive and good about themselves, you are going to encourage that person to go into work and seek gainful employment and to be really powerful in what they do. So all of us, more than anything, we need to be holders of high expectations, but we need to really work hard to elevate the happiness of anyone we meet and anyone we serve who might be looking for a job in the workplace. Because what is life if it's not about believing ourselves and being happy and taking on challenges and succeeding at those challenges? But we can't do any of that if we're not excited to be alive and excited to be right where we are.
Thank you so much. And I just wanted to end with, I think I'm going to give one final quick thought. Just the other day, literally earlier this week, I came across a quote by Thomas Edison that said something to the effect of, when you've exhausted all possibilities, remember this, you haven't. And I just want to leave everyone with that thought, because I think it's an incredible quote. And I believe it applies 100% to our topic discussion for today. Thanks again so much, all of you. You were all fantastic.
It's flashing at me. I have that one. I'm handing it back. Sorry, flashing microphones. Well done. That's a really fantastic discussion, and yeah, just brilliant. It is now question time. So just a reminder to people joining us remotely, please send your questions in. Kartik is on the decks and looking at those. But of course, I'd love to open the floor now to all the good folks here in person as well. If you raise your hand, we have a couple of folks up right at the back. I'm going to bring the microphone to you. Well, actually, I'm going to ask Kartik to do it because it's safer and quicker. Could you please just say who you are and ask away? There's another lady here on the left, but let's start with the gentleman at the back. Thanks, Kartik.
You had a question? Yeah, sure. Thanks. So my name is Joel. I lost vision a couple of years ago, so I wasn't really socialized in the blind communities, but so it's been a lot of learning as I've transitioned to having like no usable vision. So I don't really think in the context of what are blind people going to do. When I think about inclusion, I think about everyone. It's us blind people, us low vision people, us people who are neurodiverse, us people who are deaf and hard of hearing. It's everybody. And I see the barriers to a lot of people in the workplace. I think our friend from Google talked about the white guys around the water cooler. I've experienced a lot of that over time, especially in tech. So I'm wondering how does this technology affect everyone, and how, as blind people and low vision people, how does that change the environment when we're dealing with people who don't communicate verbally, people who have different styles? Even within the low vision and blindness community, we're not just the blind guy or the blind woman. We have more depth to that. So how does that make the workplace change, and how do we interact in that new environment? Thanks.
All sorts of different technology. Ricky, thank you. That's a fact.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. That's a fabulous question. Did you have anybody in particular that you'd like to ask it to?
No, it's a general one.
General one. So I'm going to throw it out there then. I'm going to look around the virtual room. I'm actually going to give this one here to Troy and ask him to answer that one.
Well, it's funny. I was thinking about what you were saying. I just got to share a little story as the CEO of a tech company. I was not in any form of accessibility until Aira. So I was the white guy at the water cooler table at various tech companies here in Silicon Valley, and then I got really fascinated with what the founder was doing. The story I'm going to tell you about is what happened about a year ago. We hired someone that was one of our customers, Starbucks, who deploys Aira at all their stores. The person who brought us in, Savannah Masai, happens to be deaf. So I thought my brain was pretty expanded as a CEO to work with people who are blind. It causes me to think differently, and also realize that many obstacles can be overcome, and sometimes we're just stubborn as humans because we don't want to put the work in and we don't want to be flexible. But when you watch, anyone with a limitation or disability or whatever you want to call it, you realize humans have a lot of potential. But where I thought I was pretty expansive, it changed when we hired Savannah because Savannah's deaf. So we changed from Zoom, for example, to Meet. Why? Because it had better captions as an example, right? We were really proud that we use Slack and we happen to have, we share pictures and we always describe them because that's in our culture. But now we realize that we need to be, again, more inclusive. And I think where it all comes together, if I understand your question, it's back to what we're talking about as we mix together in society with different capabilities, differences. Because I think one of the challenges we have today, unfortunately, is with the political dialogue, the differences divide us. But if we're not together, and we're talking now about this community, we're not going to learn from each other. We're not going to share. So I think technology, what you're seeing today, is bringing us all together, which is a good thing. And from that, my personal hope, my belief is we will become a better society because we will learn from each other and we'll learn that humans, have a lot of resiliency and we're very creative and we're going to solve problems, not to go too big, but like even climate change, like we worry about that, but we're going to engineer our way out of that. We're also going to do things differently, but it only is going to work better if we're all together, right? And I know that's a little apple pie, but I really do believe it. And I've experienced it personally at Aira.
There was just one other anecdote for your thing. There was in our office, there was a engineer that was paraplegic. And I remember, and just hand up, like I just remember seeing him and saying like, okay, like how does he type? I don't understand how that works. And this was 10 years ago or so. But what I, after kind of watching him for a couple months and seeing him and his team, interacting, is the entire team molded themselves around some of his needs in a lot of way. So going to lunch, they would all go to lunch together. I don't know if you've ever been around a team of engineers. That's not typically something that happens. And I always regret not like asking about it, but you would see this team of 5 or 6 people that were all having lunch together. And when everyone was done, it seemed like every other day someone would help them take the plate over, or someone would, push the chair, if you didn't want to, or something like that. I don't know the specifics, but I remember watching that and thinking the 5 or 6 people that were on his direct team wanted to help, right? I'm sure he was good at his job and all those sort of things, but it kind of made that team seem like a more solid team. And I noticed this as I ate alone. I didn't have a team around me. I'd rather be alone at that point. But I think for a lot of human beings, there's a benefit in being helpful to other people. And whether that helpfulness is, helping take a dish over, or helping with code, or helping with anything, I don't think that part really matters. It's the want to be there for other people around you, regardless of what that need is. But I think that was a little bit of what you were saying is, especially in a work environment, the days that I've gone to work and felt really excited to see the other people on my team were the best days. Other times, it can be a little bit lonely at times. So, yeah.
Thank you. That's great. And we had another question here for a lady here.
Okay. Hi, Amy Mason. And I guess my question is, how do we ensure equal access to these tools, particularly the ones that are fairly expensive? Because we're talking about a 70% unemployment rate. And right now, we're focused already on the 30% who already have jobs. How are we going to kind of matriculate that out to the rest of our community?
That's a really good question. Yeah, and I'm going to ask actually our speakers to put their hands up if there's anyone on, John, Obi, Lona, anybody want to answer that question before I throw the virtual microphone at you?
If you don't mind, I'd love
Okay.
to jump in here.
Thank you, Obi.
I think it's a really good question. And I think that, Amy, I really appreciate that, where you're going with that, because it's something that plagues me a lot. And I think what we need to do is we need to figure out ways to provide the technology at as low of a price as possible. And in areas where we can't provide the technology, find low-tech solutions that work. So I, for instance, hosted chemistry camps for about 6 years and had a nonprofit that did that. And we figured out chemistry experiments that worked with a very low budget that anyone could do, that anyone could utilize. So I think in many ways, rather than these super fancy, and I'm not trying to rain on the parade of what we're talking about today and the amazingness of technologies like Aira and Be My Eyes and Envision, but I do sometimes think that finding solutions that utilize the resources that are available rather than providing a super high-tech, flashy, fancy solution are going to be most successful. Does that make sense?
There's a lot of yeses in the room.
It does.
Yes, it does make a lot of sense. Thank you, Hobie. I think Kevin had a question.
Hello, my name is Kevin. I had a question. I guess the first one might be for Mike. You mentioned GoodMaps being, I guess, piloted at, I think, a BART station.
Isn't in the room.
Oh, he's not.
Yeah, he just left.
Oh.
Oh, he's back. He's back. Can you make sure he gets on that?
So, Mike, this is Kevin. I had a question about GoodMaps. You mentioned piloting it at a couple of BART stations. I think you mentioned MacArthur, and was that just the one?
That's it so far.
Okay, great. I'll check it out. The second question is, I guess talking about wearables. I know there's been talk before about Envision and Aira potentially providing GPS. I'm just curious, and I guess it'd be cool to see things like GoodMaps or some navigation method on the Envision glasses. Just curious to hear.
Yeah, we'd love to see GoodMaps installed. There is an Android and an iOS version, and a lot of these devices run Android. So that's part of the equation. Excuse me. It's a little more complicated to get the camera part of the equation working because it's not the same as just streaming video for an agent. So that's something we have to work on.
And I had a kind of second part to the question in terms of, I guess, the workplace. I know there's like the face recognition within Envision, I guess more in terms of the human or people factor, like just curious of people's tips or strategies of making that more socially acceptable, of taking people's faces and saying, hey, you're such and such.
Yeah, I think that's something that we have to see how like the culture around technology itself evolves. I think as stuff like cameras become a bit more of like a thing that people are becoming just sort of like comfortable with. Now everybody has a camera in their phones. So I think if it's like soon becomes the fact that everybody has a camera on like a wearable, and as long as we can make sure that that's not infringing on stuff like privacy of anyone, I think we can soon have a day where you can so add people's faces with the consent, of course, but in an easier way than how you have to do it right now, where you literally have to take their pictures. So I think those things will happen, and I think it's going to be pretty exciting to see how the culture around stuff like cameras and the technology and the AI in them, also how it's going to evolve in the coming years.
Thanks,
More
Kartik.
questions.
Talk to you with. Yeah, we got another question. We've got a couple of questions. I'm going to have to be really mean and just say I've got.
Probably
No,
I can
it's-
take a question from online. There's
Yeah, if we can take one from the online.
question
Sorry.
from somebody online. I'm gonna see if it's always like risky to sort of bring like a random person online, but we're gonna take that risk. We have a Joe, Marks. Joe, you can unmute yourself and ask us your question.
Hi, can you guys got me? Hello?
Yes, we got you.
Okay, all right.
Yes, we hear you, Joe.
I first off, I want to thank all of you for all of what you guys had to say, and in comparison to Hunter, I have had low vision all my life. I'm a third generation aniridic. Aniridia is a rare eye disease. It's been in my family for over 100 years. I had a 2-year-old daughter. She had a 50-50 chance of having it, and she did not get it. So it's kind of the opposite. And what I can kind of tell you as a person who's lost vision and is kind of like a new dad from the opposite side of the spectrum, like the resilience that she's going to show you is going to impress you, but it's also going to motivate you to understand more about what she does. Like it motivates me, despite what I'm going through, to still be strong and motivated to what I do, to impress her, to encourage her. So she's gonna it's gonna be kind of the reverse pattern with you to her, and then to GoodMaps and to Envision. I've been on a call with you once before, Envision, about certain aspects of the Envision AI glasses, and I've talked to one of your sales reps, Bob from Houston. And I had a question because the last time I spoke with you, I had mentioned this, and I'm just curious if there's been any advancements because I'm really thoroughly impressed. I think you just put about half the rappers in the world out of business by the glasses. But my question is will there be any progress with external navigation like streetlights, signals, street signs, stuff like that, that will be coming due to that screenshot and diagnosing, like what you did with just the document? Will that kind of bridge into the external external navigation with those kind of things? And then with GoodMaps, I guess my final question would be, you looking for volunteers? Because I really love the theory of it. So that's it. Thank you for letting me share.
All right, Joe, thank you so much. Hunter, do you want to speak to the first part of that?
Yeah, I guess if I'm gonna, I held it back, but I was about to cry. But if I'm gonna cry, I can at least lie about it in here, and no one will know if I keep it to myself. Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate you sharing that. That's really nice of you. So thank you.
Right. And Joe, just to address this, like a second aspect of it, yes, I think there is going to be a lot more interesting integrations and applications that will be unlocked, not just through the advances in AI, but also through integrations we're doing with third-party like companies, and being able to detect stuff like traffic lights and all of those things are definitely within the short-term horizon in terms of stuff we can do. But I think when it comes to stuff like that, we do need to be a little more sort of cautious, because when you want to let somebody know if your traffic light is like red or green, you do need the accuracy to be pretty good. So even if it's 99% accurate, but the 1% it's not accurate, somebody steps on, that is a liability. And I don't think we want to make those kinds of like promises. But I think the technology is getting very good. So maybe we might not do stuff with like traffic light, but it can still be used as a guidance in a lot of ways. So there's some interesting stuff that is so happening with the AI world, and the accuracy is getting pretty good. But I think for something like a traffic light, the accuracy needs to be very high. So yeah, I think it might take a while until we get that kind of accuracy. But I think there is, but I think there will be like a lot of other opportunities that will be unlocked in the meanwhile. Thank you.
Sorry, borrowing microphones here. I think what I'm going to say is that we've got so many lovely questions here. How about us going and answering those next door with a glass of wine or something like that? And I really want to, online, our lovely guests and people joining us in person. I mean, isn't this just so cool that we've done this today? So thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. And I just want to give a special shout out to our lovely partners at the Lighthouse here. What a team. They're fantastic. And so help yourselves next door. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Cheers.
Online. And to everyone online, this will be a goodbye from the webinar. And I thank you for joining. We will see you in the next webinar next month. Thank you.
Good day.